Thank you.
Jalil Afridi from the Frontier Post. One is that I feel like you are trying to give an impression that there is nothing wrong in Kashmir. Don't you think there is something wrong in Kashmir from the Indian side as well? And second is, I'm really hurt with the fact that twice on 2 occasions, you made a satire on the Islamic words with very negative things. You said inshallah on a negative thing, and you said alhamdulillah on a negative thing. For a professor like you, I don't think it's nice to make fun of religion in a gathering.
I'm not making fun of religion. I'm making fun of...
I've been here for 3 years. I have never heard anybody say funny things about somebody's religion.
It's not about.
Nice.
I'm sorry. Terrorism is not religion, but let me.
Don't say alhamdulillah on it.
Can we just?
Alhamdulillah, you're saying. I mean.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for your point.
It doesn't look nice on a
Let's.
It doesn't look nice.
We can. You and I can discuss these. Let's go to the Kashmir issue. All right. And by the way, let's talk about PTM. It's a perfectly good example of a state using everything at its disposal, including lethal violence, to degrade a group's effectiveness. So this idea that it can't, I'm not persuaded by. This is not a conversation about India and about India-Kashmir, but I'm very glad that you raised the issue of Kashmir, because there's actually 3 pieces of Kashmir, right? There is the Pakistan-administered Kashmir, and it has an appalling human rights record, to be completely blunt with you. The place has 0 development. They've basically kept that place as a petting zoo for the launching of terrorist operations into India. Let's also talk about the part of Kashmir that was illegally ceded to China. What's the human rights situation there, right? What part of China does that fall into? Remind me again. Okay, you know where I'm going with this, right? So if we were to talk about what India is doing in Kashmir, I appreciate your sentiment. I have never shirked from criticizing India's appalling human rights record. I have never shirked from criticizing Major Gogoi. And you know this because you are on LinkedIn, you see my posts. And not only was he not punished, he was accoladed by the army chief. So sir, your question, I have to say, is disingenuous. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that I will not shirk from criticizing those things. However, Pakistan, as you also know, has put India deliberately in a very bad situation. Pakistan knows that India has to maintain a large counterinsurgency grid because of the incessant threat of Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. This is why it is so easy for Pakistan to pay a youth 500 rupees to throw a rock at a police officer with full knowledge that there's a very large probability that at least one of those rock throwers will be killed. So I will say to you, sir, and I don't care if it offends you, the only Kashmiri Pakistan cares about is a dead Kashmiri. If Pakistan cares about Kashmir, it will stop using terrorism. This will allow Delhi and Srinagar to sort out their very real problems. That cannot happen until Pakistan stops the terrorism habit.
You want to take the second question on human rights?
I won't, because human rights, I don't think we have a lot of hammer there. But I will tell you, Lashkar is... Yes, they are. They are, and they're... Yes. And also to convert Hindus. And so they actually have a couple of Hindus from Thar who's become a JUD spokesperson. Because they're investing, because of the water problems with the tube wells, and of course it's, you know, the environment itself is not very water friendly. They've been investing in well infrastructure, and they are very explicit about using social welfare to convert Sindhi Hindus. They also are, in many cases, the sole provider of medical care. Now, of course, the state's doing this by choice, right? The state could provide those things, but the state actually wants LET in this role. In the same way that JUD and its humanitarian outfits are the sole source provider of earthquake relief, for example, in Balochistan. So this goes back to my argument about them being a domestic partner. They have a fascinating treatment, though, of Hindus. The leadership has been very clear that they cannot be killed, that even though they are the greatest of polytheists, right, they're the greatest of kuffar, within Pakistan, they can only be converted. And so, by the way, they have a very similarly sophisticated take on Ahmadis, right? Because if you ask them to articulate their view, they won't say that they're Kalima Go, but they're not going to advocate killing them either. So I agree with you, but going to your larger point, I haven't seen evidence that the United States is able to do anything on human rights issues, in part because it doesn't really rank. You know, as Josh said, there's all these other things that kind of rank higher, but I'm not going to comment about it further.
I'll take the last two questions. Yes, sir.